fear of being called a heretic from that, again, stringent, strict religion that you've deviated outside of the boxes. It's like, well, I am then. If that's what you think it is, then I am. But I have, it's not heretical at all. In fact, it's really healthy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another call. So today, let me introduce you our guest, because we're going to be talking about doing spirituality your own way. And you're going to see what I mean. So Judy Slater is passionate about reimagining leadership, helping both individuals and organizations embrace innovation while staying grounded in purpose in our everyday evolving world. As you can tell, by being the transformational leader, spiritual guide, and creative visionary that she is, it's through this work that she invites others to embrace their own leadership journey, igniting their purpose and impact, which is exactly why I invited her onto the show today. So like I said, we're going to talk about spirituality, doing it our own way. Judy, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the call.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here on talking about one of my favorite subjects.
It has to be a favorite subject, because how could it not be, right?
That's right.
I'm being biased. But before we get started, because there's like so much that we can talk about. But before we get started, can you share with everybody, how did this even come about for you? Like, I know it's been something like 40 years that you've been helping other people and doing all these things, but how did this all get started for you?
Actually, that's a really good question. I know it just evolved from being a very curious, creative young child asking a lot of questions and growing up in a very fundamental, boxed in Protestant, strict practice family. And by my teens, I was noticing my friends had other religious backgrounds, none at all. They were happier and healthier than I was. And then when I became ill, I actually, I started out in the medical field. And then, so I did kind of the physical healing. And then I went to seminary and did the spiritual healing work. And then I went to Bastyr University and did a program in spirituality, health, and medicine. And it wove everything together. And so that's when I began looking, that program helped me look at shamans, the indigenous people, the other religions of the world, and spiritual practices. And I just found there was so much more available and appropriate for my own journey. So I've been taking pieces from places for a long, long time.
Yeah. And that's what we do as creatives. And again, when we first met, that was like, I would love to have you on the show, because it's not just the creative part, but it's what you just mentioned. You came from medical healing, then you did spiritual healing, and then you did this thing where you can embody everything. And I think part of what we all come to do is learn from everybody, take the bits and parts, make it our own, which is kind of our topic. Spirituality doesn't have to be what we've been told it is. And then people still look at us like, at least at me, I'll put it that way. People look at me and they're like, you just pick and choose what you want. And I look at them and I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I? I mean, I don't need to follow this whole thing.
Yeah.
And when you really look at it at the end of it all, if it's true and authentic, it all teaches the same thing, just in different words.
Yes. And the fear of being called a heretic from that, again, stringent, strict religion that you've deviated outside of the boxes. It's like, well, I am then. If that's what you think it is, then I am. But I have, it's not heretical at all. In fact, it's really healthy to free the spirit to do. And that's the thing, spirituality is about the non-physical things in our world, and just being more aware of the dimensions of that is spiritual.
I love that. I'm actually writing that down. Spirituality is the non-physical things of the world. And it's true of the world. And it's true because it's, okay, normal physical reality are the things that we can see, that we can touch.
Mhm.
Everything that is spiritual, in my terminology, is frequency or energy.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's all energy. Everything is energy everywhere. That's all there is.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're never taught that. So for a
No,
lot
we are not.
right. And for a lot of people, it's like energy frequency, that's like science-y. They don't look at it as in your energy. You feel it. You have vibes.
Yeah. Well, and I would say the people that I know think it's woo woo. And I actually had to call that out to somebody. He was saying, oh, that's just woo woo. And I said, no, claim that and call it what it is. It's all energy. And that really freed him to go in a whole new direction with his work.
Right. No, and that's exactly what I do with people sometimes. So depending who I'm talking to, I can talk really woo woo and love it, or I can talk really reality and science. And for somebody that was also like that, that came to me, it was kind of like, what do you think they measure with all those EKG and all those machines? And it's the energy. And what are they listening to? The frequency and the beat of your heart. What is beat? Music. What is music? Frequency. And they also had a look as in, oh,
yeah,
because there's a dogma, right?
Yeah, yeah. And light is energy.
As
And
well.
our life force, we would not be living if we didn't have energy. That's what animates us. That's what keeps us alive or dead.
Right. And it's interesting you said that, because that's something that we can feel. Because we were just
Oh,
talking about physical and not physical, but when we're low on energy, we feel it. We feel heavy, we're dragging, we're blah.
yeah. And we can also feel it when we walk into a room and we know what happened or what was in that space. We pick up other people's energy. And that's one of the big things that I do, is help people protect themselves and gift people back their energy so they can stay 100% full of themselves. I know it is a pun and it's intentional, but otherwise, other people's energy is what makes us sick. It gets stuck in our bodies.
Right.
And our emotions are energy and motions. Our thoughts are energy, and our thoughts create our reality. So once you kind of understand those basic things, you will never be the same. You will be much more aware of all that is around you and the opportunities and ways that you can use it for your own health and well-being and for changing the world.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's what all of us that do this kind of work, that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons. Maybe it could be the top reason, or it could be one of the reasons, but it's one of the reasons that we do the work. It's to help the world. It's not just to help the individual, although that's the most beautiful number one transformation, is when you're able to see their face light up, their everything change, and help them along their path.
Yeah.
But we can feel the whole thing.
And then let me just flip it the other way, because there are people that are helping the world that haven't done the work on themselves.
True.
And that's a huge disservice to the world and to themselves. So, it does sound kind of selfish, work on yourself and then work on the other. They go together.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm writing some people helping the world and not themselves first. And that's the thing, because one of the episodes on this season is we're precisely going to talk about that with another guest, because it's exactly that. It isn't selfish. And it's all these things that we've been told that, I'm sorry, but it's wrong. We've been taught wrong, whether on purpose or not on purpose, or by whatever reason. And I think that's why the world is the way it is today, because so many of us have all these ideas. For me, spirituality is simple. The thing is, we've all complicated it. We've made it complicated. Energy is simple. Dealing with our emotions used to be simple, but not anymore, because everything's like, but if you feel this, but if you're doing that, but if you're, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about that precisely. And I kind of want to go back to the beginning. When you did this program, that it mixes spirituality with the medicine. You talked about the shamans, and you talked about the comparative religions and everything like that. You don't have to go into it 100% if you don't want, but more or less, did you find anything that was like, oh, this makes sense, or oh, this is the same as this, or oh, like, because a lot of people look at shamans like, okay, my people look at shamans like, oh my God, how cool, because we love them.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want the wisdom and the information they have, because for me, it's like, wow, there's such a source of knowledge and wisdom. But Western thinking, let's put it that way, tends to ignore that, tends to be like, oh, that's like old stuff. And they don't pay attention to that. What did they teach you? What did you know?
Well, I think kind of one of the biggest things, and this is really from IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, just the idea of worldview, that everybody has their own worldview. And so we all look at things a different way. And there have been worldviews that are much more dominant. And part of what we're doing now in our world that freaks people out is we're giving other people voice and vision. We're seeing them, and it's threatening the heck out of the people that just want it the same. And I do a lot of work with the Enneagram, which is a system of, it's an ancient system of different personality types. And when I looked at kind of all the, when I looked at all the different kind of churches in the world, I kind of said, but everybody's personality is different and everybody needs something different. So there's the people that are, critical and judgmental. And so they love things that way. There's the free spirits. They love things that way. I mean, there's things that people that need to be more dependent on somebody else. So I do really feel that each religious tradition and spiritual practices offer something that are aligned with you. And then what my challenge is to start doing something that's different, to take you out of your box, to expand you. And that's kind of what I did. I kind of expanded my box. And so there's lots of traditions. There's so much wisdom that you can incorporate into your own practices.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that because, yeah, I'm not saying change religions. I'm not saying change beliefs. I'm not saying, but it's expand yourself to learn, even if you don't agree with it, you learned about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of also personal development and human development. It's learn the country, the world, the cultures that we're in, that we share this world with. Because I think when there's more understanding, you can be a totally different belief system than I am. That doesn't mean I have to hate you. That doesn't mean that you're less than I am or I'm less than you are. And I think there's been a lot of, I won't say in the spirituality realm, but I'll say in the religion realm, there's been a lot of differences between we're the good ones, they're the bad ones, we're the right ones, they're wrong. And to me, spirituality kind of wipes that all away and says, hey, we're all the same.
Yeah. Well, and that's the big thing about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You really need that to be vital. And I'm using the word vital because we've kind of heard of the typical spiritual disciplines, like prayer and meditation and service and stewardship and forgiveness and reconciliation and hospitality. And I coined the term vital practices. And that really includes others that kind of look more secular than sacred, because I really believe that any intentional activity that turns your awareness more fully to that spiritual realm is a spiritual practice or vital practice, because they're absolutely necessary, they're important, they're essential for life, they're full of energy, and they're life-giving. So for me, it's like one of my vital practices is standing in the presence of great art. Now, that wouldn't be considered a religious act, except when people go into cathedrals or churches and, it's all there. For friends of mine, it's biking, hiking, walking, doing yoga, tai chi. And then, of course, there's the corporate ones, communal ones, like dancing, going to a football, or going to a sports team, having a meal with somebody. I mean, anything can be brought into that vital, spiritual, energetic, life-giving realm.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my shift on that whole thing.
Right. Yeah, and I love that. And let me ask you, because you just kind of mentioned corporate, and I know you work a lot with leadership and stuff like that. How do you approach this into like leadership and corporate? How do people come about it, or how do you
Yeah.
present it to them that they won't
Well,
consider it woo woo and actually will
yeah.
consider it?
Well, and my corporate is church corporate. I haven't done a
Okay.
lot in the business realm, although I've had individual clients that's what they come to me for. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
how can I maintain my belief system in a corporate culture that thinks things are woo-woo?
Mm-hmm.
So you start with the individual. But in
Mm-hmm.
in my leadership programs, I really just ask them to do two things. First, I ask them to choose a vital practice to do,
Mm-hmm.
one or something that works for them, some of the things that I've listed, and then also to practice hospitality. And hospitality is really just a loosening of the heart, and it kind of addresses the loneliness, the isolation, the individualism in our world today. So it can be as simple as just acknowledging a person at the checkout stand, offering a smile on a face, inviting somebody to tea or whatever. For me, I
Mm-hmm.
went kind of crazy and started a co-housing community because the housing issue was really important to me. But I kind of do that. I start with the individual, and then
Mm-hmm.
it kind of and then they can kind of see all the opportunities that are available to them.
Okay. No, I think that's beautiful.
Eh,
And then you're gonna say?
Well, I was going to say, and that really taps into that place that has been shut down, and
Mm-hmm.
then they can't really help but have it infect their workplace environment. So it becomes a more creative, more free, more caring, more loving space. Um,
Because if we circle back to what we were talking about, their energy changes, their
ex-
frequency changes, and then it affects the people around their frequency and their energy. And that is how and why we change the world.
exactly.
Mhm.
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
and I think that's the most beautiful part because there's so many different things, like whether it's the church corporations or business corporations or mom and pop stores.
Yeah.
The fact is, when we go to quote unquote work somewhere and there's a diversity of religions and beliefs and energies and frequencies and all of these things happening,
Yeah.
it's grounding yourself in you and discovering who you are and what you aren't. Like that
Yeah.
whole thing, you're not what you think, like those beliefs are not yours, they're probably from somewhere else. And for many of us that pick up on energies, sometimes a lot of people pick up on energies of people just walking down the street and they don't even notice. Much more if you're working with them. But if we change and we align and we get that stability, I guess would be the word I'm looking for, in us, of course people are going to feel it. It's kind of palpable, even if they don't have words for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really do like what you're saying. And again, back to the energy thing, every interaction is an exchange of energy. So
Mhm.
yes, we are going to pick, but, and back to that 100% full of yourself, you really need to protect yourself. You can still feel it, but you don't want that charge, because it's that charge that embeds in you. So I have a practice called neutral separations, that after every interaction, and I have, like, after I walk out of a door, or from a meeting, or after Zoom, I turn it off, or when I'm in my car, I just basically push my hands out and say, I gift you back your energy. I take back all of my energy, and I ground myself in present time. And what you were describing a couple minutes ago was that grounding. We are
Mhm.
grounded in ourself. We're grounded to Mother Earth. We're grounded to reality. We're grounded in the present moment. And that's what makes us aware of what's going on around us and inside us, and the things that we need to tweak. So
Mhm.
awareness is kind of where the growth um, becomes evident, or yeah, we
Right.
begin noticing that
Right.
we're shifting, and other
Mhm.
people notice it too.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because some people look at you and they're like, there's something different about you.
Hmm. Mhm.
There's a glow.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
just the fact that maybe you're happier, you're actually expressing it in a different way. But people are just looking at you, they're like, there's something different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
After working with a group for a year and a half, and then I saw them 5 years later, and they're like, "You look 10 years younger." It's those kinds of remarks, which name kind of the process. Is like, yeah, yeah, there's, yeah, I've been doing a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. I remember there was once that I had a client and we were doing like an intensive. So it was like back to back 3 days intensive, but it was in person. Like I actually did the whole intensive. She cried her eyes out. She released a whole bunch of things, yada, yada, yada. The next day, she glowed.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. And she goes, I didn't just finish when I finished with you. I went home and it kept going and kept going. Like all these things kept coming up. And I remembered everything you were telling me and I worked on it and I worked on it. And I go, you do not look like you did not sleep. You look like you've had the best beauty sleep of your life. And overnight, you can see the difference in the person's face.
And it goes back to, we carry all of those family expectations, cultural expectations, ancestor expectations, all of that kind of stuff, but they're not our own.
Mhm.
We can discard them entirely, or we can take those rituals and practices and histories and make them our own and bring them up to date. And
Mhm.
that's the really freeing part. Yeah.
Mhm. And those are the things in spirituality that I love, that
Mhm.
it's so open and freeing. And we need to talk about creativity because it's also very creative. And that's like the whole thing. It's like, I remember there was once, I think I was being interviewed on a podcast, which is funny because I was on the other side of the camera.
Mhm.
And I had just finished doing something with a client, and they're like, what did you do? Can you share it with us? And I laughed because literally, so you and I have talked that I'm also very creative and, blah, blah, blah. Spirituality does come from, according to people, the right side of the brain, which is part of the creative. But when we use our creativity, when we use I can never say it, visualization, when we use our imagination to forecast the future and manifest it and, bring it into being, we're using creative qualities. But what's funny is that you can even do that in healings. So when they asked me, what did you just do in the session? I started laughing because I had never done that before. And I'll tell you real quick, I remember I was helping them clean. So I was able to enter their field and I can be with them and hold space and enter the field of the client. And we were working on ancestral issues. And there was like, I could see kind of like lines that needed to get a little bit more positive. So it's not cutting them and removing them because they're still ancestral lines. And I was like, how would I clean these lines quickly? And in my mind, I was like, because we need to end the session, because how are we going to do this? I have no idea why I thought of it. I imagined like a Windex bottle, like the whole Windex bottle. And on the label, I literally wrote, instead of Windex, I wrote energy clearing, ancestral. I wrote something so it was the intention. And I literally, in my mind, sprayed all the things, wiped them clean, and they shined. And I was cracking up. So I shared that on the podcast, and they're like, does that work? And I'm like, everything is intention. It's energy and it's intention.
Yes.
To fast forward now, that was about 3-4 years ago. To fast forward now, the client did call me afterwards, and she had a major change, major this, major that. So I'm guessing my intention with my spray ended up working after all.
Yes, and it also illustrates how important our thoughts are, because our thoughts are intentions. And so we really have to be careful about our thoughts because they are intentions. And then I want to go back to the creativity piece a little bit, because I think my number one belief is that we are created to be creative. In my tradition, the Bible starts with God created heaven and earth. And so we are co-creators with God, or the divine, or whatever word you want to use,
Mhm.
in creating the world together. And again, that's through your thoughts, that's through your intentions, it's through the energy that you offer. It doesn't have anything to do with being an artist I kind of ban the A word in a lot of places because, again, that puts people in a box because they've been scolded that they can't draw, paint, whatever. Creativity is our natural energy. It is who we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can use it in everything from everyday to, well, to, you're even using your creativity in raising your family, the clothes that you wear, the things that you eat, present, places you go. It all has some kind of creative aspect because it's expressing who you are, and it's offering you to others to kind of join together in that creative spark that creates our world. So
I love that. Yeah. And it's so true. So many did get scolded. Like, it's like, if you're going to be an artist, you have to be like this. And I've always thought, I think the least industry that cares they have to be a certain way is an artist. So that even contradicts it. It's like, really? But it's that whole thing. And it is that creative power that we have within us. It really is. And the imagination, like the power of imagination that we have, like, for example, let's say a vision board. The people of us, the groups of us, or however we say that, because that sounded weird. The people who believe in vision boards, it's like, oh, it's fun and it's this and it's that. But then we have the science that can prove when the eyes are looking at it, the brain is registering it. When the brain registers it, I think it's SAR, SAR or something. It's a system, something, something. And then your brain is more actively looking for things like that because we are so bombarded with a gazillion different things a day.
Yeah.
But the vision boards and stuff like that and practices and imagination actually kind of tells our brain, hey, this is what I'm wanting. How do we get there? And then the brain does what it needs to do. And then we do it. And that's how we manifest it. It's not, magic in a bottle, but it is magical.
Yeah. And I think there's one other piece, because one of the questions that I asked from an early age was like, where does your imagination come from?
Oh,
and it's like, okay, where does it even come from? Where do you get that idea of a spark? And yes, I do think there's something in you, but I also think, again, that it's out there in that energy field, because oftentimes somebody will create something and 3 or 4 or 5 people already had it, or it's in a different form or whatever. So there's something going on. And I do think it's Elizabeth Gilbert who talks about, you've been given something, and if you don't do it, it's going to somebody else.
Yes.
Because all of those little particles or all those little ideas are out there. And the ones that really resonate with you, you get first dibs on them.
Yeah.
And then also from your dreams, from your imagination, from your fantasy world, from really just from opening up your mind to receive anything that you can use.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm trying to think of the name of the book. I loved it. I know which one it is. Something magic. Be magic,
Yep,
fun
it
magic.
is.
Big magic.
Big magic. Yeah.
Big magic. I love that book. And yeah, I love the way she expresses it.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, whether it works like this or it doesn't, it's kind of my brain's understanding of how.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we have little antennas, right? For me, every time I feel something, it's like I feel, oh my God, my little antennas like going up because I could literally feel my chakras like, woohoo, that's the one. For me, it's kind of like we're little antennas, and this world is, and we all know what Wi-Fi is nowadays. We're not talking 90 years ago that nobody knew. I do believe our world is this holographic thing that we don't understand it yet as much as many of us might think we do. I think there's so much beauty in the organization that we don't even really know how it works. But I think our little antennas pick up on things that are just like passing by through the Wi-Fi. Now, who's throwing that in the Wi-Fi would probably be the question. Like, where does the imagination come from? Like, yeah, I have no idea. Could it be my higher self? Could it be divinity? Could it be the angels? Could it be a fractal of mine in another dimension? I mean, it could be none or all. I have no idea. But you're right. Sometimes there's things that it just comes to us and to that person and to that person. And that's okay.
Well, and it's interesting that you use the words antenna and you kind of touch the top of your head. I teach and went through the training at the Academy of Intuition Medicine, and there's a system called the Spiritual Incarnation System. And the way it comes into your body is through two little antennae right above where, I can't remember what it's called, where the four bones of your head come together, right above your seventh chakra. And it enters your system that way. It goes down the back of your head, then through your direct voice, which is creativity, and direct writing, which is creativity, and out your arms, and then it goes down your back. And that's the whole creative, spiritual, bringing in the spiritual and interacting with the spiritual. And it can get really blocked and clouded and stuff, and you run a metallic copper through it, and it kind of cleans it out. So you are correct. The chakra system and the acupressure system, those are all energy systems that are radio receivers and bringing in your energy. So, you're also talking about intuition, and people say, oh, intuition's the sixth sense. It's like, well, no, there's really, I think, 21 and counting different ways that people receive intuitive hits. So we have been so limited in our experience and our knowledge, and we have so much available to us with really very little effort.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of, again, we don't know everything we don't know. Like you just said, probably 21 and counting, because we don't even know the potential that we have. Yeah. But who was it? Dr. Jean Houston? That she is one of the ones that started that human potential movement. And I remember when I was reading her books, God, like a decade ago or more, I was so fascinated with the information that she was giving. And it's like, I would do the little exercises and I was like, wow, I could feel it. And it starts to make you question, how much really more potential can we have, or do I have? And again, we're so limited by what either we've been told or we know or we do, or whatever it is, that it seems unreal, right?
Right. And I do want to, you've said, that we know several times, and I do want to say that Western culture really bases their reality on the mind and knowing things. And that's one of the centers of intelligence. But we also have that heart intelligence, which again, in our culture, it's like, I don't, emotions make me uncomfortable.
Exactly.
But then, as we also talked about, there's that body intelligence. Often it's in the gut, but there's certain people that they just know, but it's not head knowledge, it's a body knowledge. So another thing is opening to the different intelligences and using, like when you drive a car, you're really not driving with your thought brain or your emotional brain. Your body just knows what to do. It knows when to turn on the blinker. It knows where to look in the mirrors. It knows when to shift. That's your body intelligence. Right. Now, when I have a conversation with a client, there's some mind stuff going on, but I'm really connecting at that heart intelligence level and picking up the nonverbal cues and the body language and the energy that's being expressed there. And so a lot of times I have to tell clients, give your mental analyzer a break. It's not helpful. At the very least, slide back into your meditation sanctuary, which is more inner, behind, more expansive. But we have really gotten into, and it's part of that age of enlightenment. It was all about, what do you believe, but cognitive belief. And again, you can believe in love, but you can't really, it's an experience, it's a feeling. So there's some things that just aren't going to fit in that mental box.
Right. And it's that whole, it's a difference in knowing, like what you're saying.
Yes.
It's like there's a difference in knowing, because I know it's happened to me sometimes that it's like, how do you know? I don't know. I just know.
Exactly.
And I know it didn't come from my head because it wasn't like a thought. Right. It was just, I just know. And then there are other times that it's like, oh, okay, I know that because of this and this and this, or because, oh, that makes sense. But it's kind of like, until you don't live it, which is what you just mentioned with the heart, until you don't live, like, let's say falling in love head over feet for somebody, you can see it in a movie, you can read it in a book, you think you understand it, Yeah,
Mhm.
but it's a totally different animal when it happens to you. It's like you can't express it unless you've lived it and you're like, oh my God, yes, I felt that. And you didn't even need words.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I've had, I haven't, love is one of those abstract things. You know, you can't really know it. You
Uh-huh.
can experience it and have that rush of endorphins and your body reaction. But oh, I just heard oh, what is her name? Um Bell, what's the first name? Hooks, Bell Hooks. Her definition of love is the will to nurture your own or another's spiritual growth. So
Mm.
it's a choice. It's not an emotion. Um, it's an
Huh.
intention. And I love that definition, the
Hmm.
will to nurture one's own or another's spiritual growth. Because again, as we're talking about spirituality, spirituality is the way that we really connect with one another and show
Right.
our care and love. Yeah.
Right. In whichever way it is, because yeah.
Mhm.
No, I haven't heard of her. I'm gonna look her up. Bell
Okay.
hooks.
Bell
Okay.
hooks. And she uses not capital letters, smaller, lowercase letters for her name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's all of that is amazing. And it's true. It's for all of us, it's kind of like again, what we're talking about today, spirituality your own way means you can look at things differently, you can feel things differently. You and I have come to the same path through
Right.
different means,
Yeah.
and yet we've learned kind of the same thing and we're kind of at the same level. And it's sharing this
Yeah.
to others and with others that expands all of us.
That's exactly the word I was going to use. It's an expansion, and we
Mhm.
want to keep expanding and bring and adding to and becoming, having more tools, having more experiences. You know, having that whole smorgasbord of
Mhm.
choices. Yeah,
Right. And
yeah,
then if we want to get scientific about it, we know scientifically that the universe keeps expanding.
we do.
And if we are part of the universe, which obviously we are, if we want to see it however which way, we're
Mhm.
obviously here, we exist, so we're
Yeah,
part of the universe. The fact that we keep expanding what we know and the love and the knowledge and keep expanding, and the universe keeps expanding as well, of
mhm.
course there's healing. Of course there's light. Of course there's shifts and there's movements because we're aligned with
Yeah.
who and what we are, except
And
we're like this little individual size little universe of our own. And for me, spirituality is a reminder of I'm not my universe all alone. I'm in this huge universe with everybody, everything, and we're continually expanding. And for me, that right there just blows the top. It's like, what else is possible? Like, this is amazing.
yeah, yeah. And the counter to that is when there's fear and anxiety and worry and hate, that's what contracts you. And that's
Mhm.
what, and then that you end up just responding from your emotional brain, your reptilian brain, and you
Mhm.
don't really even have cognitive thoughts. And so you really just, I'm, kind of fold into yourself, become hidden, become hard, and you stop that expansion. And that's
Right.
a lot of that is happening in our world right now too. So I just had
Right.
to name it, but I
Yeah.
much prefer yeah, let's keep expanding. Let's keep,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, even
let's
talking about that, when we do, what is it?
contract.
Contract. I was gonna say contradict. When we do contract,
Mhm.
it's also a breakdown of our systems. And
Yes,
that's why a lot of people get sick. And that's
yes.
where all these things come from. And that's where, you know, and it's just that. And I know it sounds simple to say, okay, the antidote is just expand. And it really is. But I know it's not as simple. Like it's easier said than done when we're in it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because when we're happy and good and healthy and this and life is like okay, we're like, oh yeah, okay, let me keep expanding, like this feels good. But
yeah,
when we're so into the problem, into the thing, into the chaos of what's happening,
yeah.
you don't see a way out. And you're right, I do believe that that's a lot of what's happening in the world, and it's more of kind of like, okay, I realize that's happening, but maybe let's shift and step out for a minute and see where can I expand on and take your mind off of that for a bit. And then your brain can help you assimilate and the rest of your knowings, like we've been talking about.
Right. And I also, the world, we get into dichotomies that it's either one or the other. And so, and as we kind of know, things are on a continuum. We're not totally shut down, we're not totally open. And part of the spiritual practice is either to come to that place of neutrality or pause or clarity and just rest in that space, and then see what comes. So
Right.
I'm often looking for that third or that fourth way to be with something.
Or the sixth or the eighth, or it doesn't matter. You
Exactly.
just keep going.
Exactly.
Right. Right.
Yeah. But we've, in our busy culture, again, pausing and resting and relaxing is frowned upon. And yet
Right.
I guess another one of those vital practices. And I think that's one of the gifts of spirituality. When people do those spiritual practices, it gives them that space to kind of just be. Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. No, I love that. And I know we're running out of time. So, Judy, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us and talking about all this, because I love the feedback. I love getting it from like a different perspective, because we all, again, we all say very similar things in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I love all the things that you're doing. How can people, or where can people reach out to you that I'll put in the show notes so that they can connect with you and that you can like guide them through all these things?
Okay. So my website is interludecoach.com, INN, so inner, inside, because that's where I do the work, interludecoach.com. And then I've also created a book and a card deck, and you can find that either on my website or at simplyselfwonderful.com. And that is about celebrating the gifts of being uniquely you. And it talks about the self-wonderfuls like self-love, self-care, self-expression, all of that. But then it includes that other side, the self-woundings, the self-harm, the self-criticism, the self-judgment, the self, that sort of thing. And then I have just, in the last week, I've put the card deck on a new app so you can carry it with your phone, have it on your phone. And that's at deckable.com. And it's the Simply Self Wonderful deck. So, yeah.
And
so
I'll be sure to put all the
ways to find me.
Okay, good. No, good, good. And I'll be sure to put all those links here on the show description. But thank you again for sharing with us the way you see the world, the laughter, and everything that you're doing.
Same to you. Thanks so much, Angelica.
Thank you. All right, everybody, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching until the end. My question to you is, what is the one thing that you have learned from today's video that you can apply exactly today? Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and go catch our next video.